Today we're going to talk about how to perfect the squat so that you can safely lift more weight and build a muscular set of legs. We're going to be breaking this video up into 3 sections. 1, muscles targeted. 2, setup and form. 3, common mistakes and how to fix them. What's up guys, my name is Ryan Treadaway, founder of TreadawayTraining.com, where we help busy professionals get more results in less time through online training. Now, let's dive right in. First, we're going to talk about biomechanics and muscles targeted. The quadriceps extend the knee by pulling the upper leg forward. The glutes extend the hips by driving the hips forward. The spinal erectors keep the spine stable and upright throughout the movement. It's a common misconception that the abs are targeted by the squat. The abs are actually almost completely inactive in the squat. I talk about this more in my how to get a six-pack video, which I will link down in the description. Before we talk about setup, I recommend you use a 10mm belt to aid in stabilizing your core, but this is optional. You should squat either in squat shoes or barefoot to allow maximum force to transfer from your feet into the ground. I'll talk more about this in a separate video that I will link in the description. When preparing for the squat, set the J-hooks at around armpit height. This will allow you to unrack and rack the bar without having to tiptoe in and out. Before stepping under the bar, make sure your hands are set to ensure that when you do step under the bar, it's centered on your shoulders. Use as narrow of a grip as is comfortable. This will activate the muscles of the back to a greater degree. When getting under the bar, there are 2 options. With the high bar position, the bar will sit on top of your traps. With the low bar position, the bar will sit on top of your rear delts. The high bar position is a bit more quad dominant, and the low bar is a bit more glute dominant. The low bar position is a bit more advanced and requires your rear delts to be developed enough for the bar to be able to rest on top of them. For these reasons, we'll be focusing on the high bar squat in this video. Once you have the bar on your shoulders, it's time to walk the bar out. Take 1 small step backward, take a larger step backward with your other foot, and take another small step backward with your first foot to even up your feet. Be sure to walk straight back to avoid hitting the rack with the weights. Set your feet with your toes pointing 20 to 40 degrees outward. If you're unsure of how far to point your toes, stand up and look down at the direction your toes are pointing. You can use this as a starting point. When setting your feet, choose a stance that's the most comfortable for you. But in general, your stance should be wider than shoulder width. Many coaches will tell you to look forward when squatting. Personally, I tell my clients to look slightly downward, which keeps the neck in a more neutral position. Pick a spot on the floor about 10 feet in front of you to look at. Take a deep breath down into your gut and brace your core by forcing your midsection out against your belt. To start the descent, you'll break at the knees and the hips simultaneously, allowing the bar to travel downward in a straight line. During the descent, force your knees outward so that they track in line with your toes as you approach the bottom of the rep. You'll want to go down at least until your upper legs are parallel with the ground to ensure maximum muscle and strength gains. If you have powerlifting goals, you'll need to go down until your hip crease is below your knee joint. The eccentric or downward phase of the rep should take between 1 to 1.5 seconds. As you descend, your muscles will stretch like a rubber band, storing up force as they stretch. Explode up as soon as you reach the appropriate depth to take full advantage of this effect. Drive your shoulders into the bar and push straight upward to the starting position. Keep the weight distributed evenly across your feet throughout the entire lift. Once you return to the starting position, breathe out, take another deep breath in, and brace your core again for the next rep. Now that we've talked about how to properly do the squat, let's talk about some common mistakes that I see that you'll want to avoid. The most common mistake I see is using too much weight and not squatting low enough. If you want to maximize muscle and strength gains, squatting to the appropriate depth is essential. Put your ego aside, lower the weight, and squat to parallel. Doing quarter reps just kind of makes you look silly anyway. Personally, I'm much more impressed when I see somebody lifting lighter weights correctly than when I see somebody lifting heavier weights incorrectly. The next mistake I commonly see is allowing the knees to cave in during the bottom half of the rep. You can help correct this by not lifting in tennis shoes. Lifting in squat shoes or barefoot will provide a more stable surface and will help keep the weight evenly distributed across your feet. You can also warm up with a band around your knees to help mentally cue you to force your knees outward. It's also possible your gluteus medius and minimus are simply too weak. You can strengthen them by performing hip abductions with a cable machine or hip abduction machine. Next is letting your hips shoot up as you start to push the bar back up. This often happens as a result of letting too much weight rest over the heels, throwing you off balance. To fix this, make sure you have the weight evenly distributed across the entire foot. The last error I commonly see is descending too fast and bouncing at the bottom of the rep. Not only is this dangerous for the knees and the spine, but you also lose that stretch response that we talked about earlier. Remember, the eccentric portion of the rep should take around 1 to 1.5 seconds. And there you have it. All the steps that you need to perfect the squat and start building muscle and strength. Question of the day: how much can you squat? Let me know down in the comments and I will list my max down there as well. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. If you found this useful, then check out my guides on how to perfect the bench press and the deadlift next. And if you want even more content just like this, then check us out on the Treadaway Training Blogcast. We're there every Sunday at 3 p.m. That's treadawaytraining.com/blog. As always, God bless you and your family, and we'll see you tomorrow.